accident, you know it's no walk in the park. Car repairs, medical bills, and lost time from work all add up. And if the insurance company isn't paying their fair share, you have to cover the rest, even if it wasn't your fault. That's why you need an advocate. Call us today, and we'll do everything we can to get you moving again. Come on.
You deserve clear, risk-free advice to help get you back on your feet. You deserve an advocate.
This is The Monty Show, the truth in sports talk streaming. When you want unbiased opinions about your favorite team without the spin, all you have to do is find The Monty Show, streaming live and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on YouTube. And now, here's Monty.
Hey, The Monty Show. Happy Tuesday. August 6th, The Monty Show is always presented by The Advocates, theadvocates.com. The best injury attorneys in the business. And, you know, it's always interesting to hear from people who have gotten in a car accident, or you cannot trust your insurance company to do right by you. I know, and I say this all the time, and people don't believe me. Insurance, I am a big believer insurance is a scam. Hell, I just went to the dentist yesterday. Trust me when I say insurance is a scam. Don't trust your insurance company. Don't sign documents before you call the advocates or chat with an attorney live online at theadvocates.com, where you have nothing to lose, because you can chat with an injury attorney 24/7, 365, and it won't cost you a dime. At theadvocates.com, car accidents, motorcycle accidents. Unfortunately, we hear about them all the time, motorcycle accidents, scooter accidents. Listen, it's not your fault you got into that accident. It's not your fault you're injured. Maybe you can't work. Maybe you don't have a way to get to work. Let the advocates take that load for you. Check them out online at theadvocates.com. Breaking news to start the show this morning. The 49ers, according to Adam Schefter, are now listening to offers for Brandon Aiyuk, and they have given Aiyuk permission to negotiate a contract with other teams. And this is still very perplexing to me. I understand that Brandon Aiyuk is a guy that wants to get paid. I understand that Brandon Aiyuk is somebody that is a young emerging wide receiver. Why would you want to leave this offense? And again, you got to get paid. What is the value of, at this juncture on August 6th, when we're 3 weeks away from the regular season, what is the value of finding a new home this late in the game, where you're going to have to put yourself in a situation where you got to learn a new offense, where you're going to have to build chemistry with a quarterback in 3 weeks, and that's if a trade happened today. I think this is a terrible move by Brandon Aiyuk.
Absolutely, and I think that, you know, this has bad news written all over for Brandon Aiyuk. I mean, you do have to get paid, and I think in a perfect world, you know, Brandon Aiyuk probably would have loved to gotten paid by the 49ers. I mean, that's what he would have loved to have seen happen, but those two couldn't figure it out. And it seemed like, you know, last week, there was some video last week where Aiyuk's out on the practice field in street clothes, and, you know, they're all kind of hanging out, him and Shanahan and everybody. And so people thought, oh, well, you know, maybe they got it figured out. But clearly with this breaking news, they didn't get it figured out. And yeah, I would tend to agree. I don't know why, if you're Brandon Aiyuk, that you're putting yourself in a situation where it's like, hey, I'm basically needing to be paid the most I could possibly be paid, or I'm out. Do you not care about playing for Super Bowls? Do you not care about, you know, maximizing your career? Like, you're in a great spot, man.
And if you're the 49ers, I just think you have no choice but allow him to go out and figure out what his value is. This is very much like Saquon Barkley, where you're allowing him to go to the market. Let him go. Because I think what Brandon Aiyuk's gonna find out is, when you are holding out, and he is, well, holding in, reporting to camp and refusing to practice, you have lost a lot of leverage. If Brandon Aiyuk wants to win this, and if Brandon Aiyuk expects to get a massive payday from somebody else, I think he's going to be very disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the only move the 49ers have to make, and I am very curious where he ends up. Very curious. Now, excuse me, as a Bears fan, I'd love to have Brandon Aiyuk. I'm a huge Aiyuk believer. I love the cat. We saw him at Arizona State. Obviously, I think he's been a revelation for Brock Purdy and the 49ers. He's turned himself somehow, some way into a very good route runner who seems to always find that half-yard window. I think Brandon Aiyuk is a hell of a wide receiver in this league. And as you hit the like button on YouTube, and if you're watching on the X platform, hello, in the comments section, are you on Aiyuk's side of the 49ers? I don't know that there's a right side to be on here. This is one of those few situations where I feel like if you're the 49ers and you trade Brandon Aiyuk, that's a mistake. If you're Brandon Aiyuk and you wind up leaving the 49ers, that's a mistake. These two, it's hard for me to believe that these two can't find a way to do business. It's shocking.
And I think that's why you're exactly right. You got to let them go out and be humbled in the market. Now, the problem with that is I'm sure there's going to be some suitors who would be happy to pay Brandon Aiyuk. And, obviously there was all this noise and all this smoke about how, he was going to go to Washington and hook up with his friend. And, I think that Brandon Aiyuk is someone who we don't know if he's good because he's simply gotten better at running routes inside of that offense, or if he's good in any offense and he's just now a great route runner. And that's what I think for Aiyuk, he's got to prove. But again, we're in a league in the NFL where all these dudes care about is getting paid. And I understand that. You're not in the NBA. You're not a bench warmer making, 20 a year. Like, that's not how the NFL works.
Brandon Aiyuk drew interest from the Patriots and Browns, as well as the Pittsburgh Steelers. None of those situations are better than San Francisco. San Francisco is going to compete for a spot in the Super Bowl again. You have one of the best young upcoming quarterbacks. You have an MVP candidate in Christian McCaffrey, and you are a focal point of that offense. And you're trying to find a way to get to Cleveland, to get to Pittsburgh, where they don't know who their starting quarterback is. You're telling me you're trying to get away into New England, where Drake May apparently has not been great in camp. You're trying to find your way into a worse situation for more money. Meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Meet in the middle. This is, oh my God.
Well, and that's the hard part is like, and we talk about this so often in sports, like some of these guys, like it's not like we're talking about you making, $50,000 a year or $70,000 a year. And you got to have that 70 to just put food on your table because you live in California. Like we're not talking about that, bro. We're talking about a dude who is,
he's making $14.1 million in the fifth year of his rookie deal if he stays in San Francisco.
So let me get this right. You're looking at, okay, bump it into the 2020s for average annual salary. Okay, fine, great. But you are putting yourself, you're essentially changing the arc of your career. Right now, you're in an organization that if you would just stay there and eat some humble pie and take a little bit less money, but appreciate the money you're getting paid, you could go out and have, a phenomenal career because of the situation at play. Do you really think Brock Purdy's going anywhere? Dude, Brock Purdy's going to be a 49er for like 10 years, man. He's not going anywhere. And to me, I just look at this and I say, dude, you're a wide receiver, man. You're talking about going to teams who don't have good quarterbacks. They don't have good situations, all because what? You want to get paid?
He's making 14 and he is likely to push 25 million per year. If he negotiates a new deal, who's going to give him that? And I agree. He's a phenomenal wide receiver. The last 2 years have been a revelation. 4 years, 25 touchdowns. Fantastic.
Yeah.
4 years in the league, 3,931 yards. Fantastic. All of that production essentially came in the last 2 years where he was over 1,000 yards each year. That's great. Who's willing to pay you $25 million on a multi-year contract? I think you're out your goddamn mind.
And again,
chance.
Dude, I have to point this out. Like the system they run in San Francisco under Shanahan is worlds different than most systems. It's a very unique offense. You're getting a lot of unique looks. You're getting a lot of unique opportunities. Like just the way that San Francisco runs their screen game is a little bit different than what most people do. And Aiyuk benefits from that side of the game. He benefits from the fact that he's playing with several future Hall of Famers. It surprises me that Brandon Aiyuk wouldn't say, okay, you know what? Like, I'm in a good spot. Maybe let's not ask for 25.
Yeah.
Let's do 22. Let's do 21 and get the bump up into the 20s and ride off into the sunset. Man, it's incredible to me.
Yep. Giggity says, I hate insurance companies with a passion.
Yeah, who doesn't, right?
It's ridiculous. Anyway. Bad, horrendous move by the 49ers. Are you willing to pay Brandon Aiyuk $25 million a year? I'm not. I don't think it's a bad, horrendous move by the Niners. I think it is a loss. Brandon Aiyuk's don't grow on trees, dude. Like, he is a quality receiver. Giggity also says, feel like the Niners slow played the trade and put Aiyuk in a tough spot. They did, which is your only move here. I mean, this is not something that just, flamed up overnight. This is a months-long impasse, if you will.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to play on a 5th-year deal. And I say, go out and do it again. I would not leave the 49ers, not right now. This coming offseason, a year from now, great, be wearing different colors. Right now, it is not going to help you to go to Pittsburgh.
And look, I understand you don't want to play on your 5th year. I understand that in concept. We hear that a lot in the NFL. Hey, I'm a quarterback. I want my extension now. Or hey, I'm this guy. I'm a franchise level player. Let's go ahead and get that next deal.
Football hurts.
Yeah.
Injuries happen.
Yeah.
If you're the 49ers, you're not paying Brandon Aiyuk a second before you absolutely have to. If you're Brandon Aiyuk, you're getting paid the second you are able to get paid. And you're going to do what you got to do. That to me makes the most sense. Think it's bad for both parties. It's such a tragedy. Might mean Niners won't compete. Hope a potential trade will at least be fair. There's no such thing.
I don't think losing Aiyuk. See, and this is Aiyuk's problem too in the whole situation. The Niners losing Aiyuk doesn't mean all of a sudden they're not competing. They're like it doesn't knock them out of the playoff picture or anything.
I mean, it means that Ricky Pearsall's got to be a better player than you hoped he would be.
Yeah.
That's what it means. It means everybody bumps up a spot and next man up, bro.
But again,
right?
let me be the asshole Kyle Shanahan guy and say this is why that system works though. Nobody knew who the hell Brandon Aiyuk was coming out of the draft.
But Brandon Aiyuk's been very good. And I think this also puts a lot more pressure on George Kittle to reignite his career here. Because there's a lot of questions about what his top end is. So all this does is ratchet up the demand on Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Debo to stay healthy. Like, if you move Aiyuk day one, you're not as dynamic as you were, but you can compete. If Debo goes down, and he will, and you move Aiyuk, that's when you're going to find yourself in a tough spot. Because you're not getting another human being back for him. If that's your goal, that's not happening. That's not. Kay Sumbry, good morning to you. James, I would take less of a raise if I could get a longer deal. I would take less money to win Super Bowls. Or at least compete for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You're not going to get, he's not going to get, the same value, but just change the duration. That's not going to happen. The proposition is, hey, you got to be willing to take less money to be on a Super Bowl caliber team. That's the proposition. You either want to do that or you don't want to do that. And clearly, Brandon Aiyuk doesn't want to do that.
CeeDee Lamb or Brandon Aiyuk?
That's tough. I don't think that's instantly Brandon Aiyuk.
I don't think it's instantly CeeDee Lamb. Am I wrong about that?
Well,
by the way, where's the CeeDee Lamb contract extension?
Yeah, well, that's a great point. Yeah, he hasn't gotten his either. But this is my question for when we compare Aiyuk to other wide receivers. So Aiyuk does a lot of different things for that offense. So if you put him in, Pittsburgh's offense or Cleveland or whatever the hell, New England's offense, more basic offenses, more traditional style offenses, does he win that matchup with regularity? Does he thrive the way he's thrived in San Francisco? I'm not sure.
Does he thrive under I mean, I can't believe he ends up in Pittsburgh. But
does he thrive as a number 1 on someone's team?
Does he thrive as a number 2 with Deshaun Watson?
Yeah.
Does he thrive as a number 3 in Chicago? Does he thrive as a number 1 with Drake May? I don't think so. To your point, he is a star in Shanahan's system. So we'll keep you up to date on that. There's a lot of fluid news. I love this. Did you guys see the fight while we're talking NFL real quick? Did you guys see the fight in Giants training camp yesterday? And I still don't understand why NFL teams like to fight. Every training camp, somebody breaks a hand or gets hurt in the middle of a fight in training camp. That happens every year. It's why coaches hate it so much. And if you are the New York Giants, do you want your quarterback getting into fights, namely Daniel Jones, who you just chose over Saquon? Do you want him leading the charge in a training camp fight?
Oh, Daniel Jones! Look at the coach pulling Daniel Jones out.
I mean, I am amazed at the fact that, one, that's the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
The Detroit Lions want to break your legs, right? And if you're Daniel Jones, are you really putting yourself in the middle of a fight with the Detroit Lions?
Apparently.
I'm not. That's wild to me. Coming off of a massive knee injury, an ACL tear, are you really putting yourself in the middle of that? And, by the way, fans love it. Fans are there. It's like you're at the Coliseum watching gladiators.
Maximus.
Right? Like fans love it. And again, I think this is a critical year for the New York Football Giants.
Yeah.
I think this is a huge year. I don't want Daniel Jones fighting.
But see, if Brandon Aiyuk was going to the Giants, it'd be like, okay, maybe a little bit better of an opportunity for you. But really, the best you have available to you is Browns, Steelers, Pats. I mean, you've got like when this video first came out of Daniel Jones fighting in camp, the first reaction to this video was, holy cow, Daniel Jones is here for
defending his teammates,
like going into it.
I don't want him doing that. Not in.
Look at the coach pulling Daniel Jones
not against the Lions. You're talking about the Detroit Lions for favored to win North.
The Dan Campbell.
Yeah, I'm not having my quarterback do that. But just I thought it was an interesting note. Don't forget about Hard Knocks with the greatest quarterback that anybody's ever met.
Tonight.
The Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
And stuff. Justin Bemis. I don't think he will thrive in a different style offense.
Big question mark, dude.
You're making $14 million to compete for a Super Bowl. Shut up and be happy about it, and then go get paid. Oak State James. If you're a star in the NFL, you can make money in endorsements. Play hard and get money. Wait. Get money from other sources. Because yesterday I got roundly ripped because I only read half of one comment. If you're an NFL player, make no mistake about it. You need to get paid the second you can get paid. And if you're missing training camp reps, big effing deal. I don't disagree with the guys that hold in. The CeeDee Lambs of the world being a little more divisive. Brandon Aiyuk's at camp. And I would not be practicing either.
That's the Jordan Love situation, right? Look at what happened with Jordan Love.
I am not practicing until I have new money.
And what happened?
Because you pull an abdominal muscle while taking a dump at camp, you just cost yourself money in a contract.
Yeah.
That's the harsh reality of it. And if you're Brandon Aiyuk, yes, have you had 2 good years? Yeah, but who the fuck are you, Jerry Rice?
Yeah.
Like, that's the mentality that the 49ers have, and they should. And they should, because you don't want to pay young guys, especially wide receivers who are mercurial by nature and difficult to rein in. At the best wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb and his mom tweeting about Dak Prescott, who remembers that, right? Like, you are, if you are a top wide receiver in this league, you are a prima donna. I'm not paying you until I have to, and I'm certainly not paying you a penny more or a day more than I have to.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is, Brandon Aiyuk obviously has this commitment to getting paid as much as possible, but I also think that a lot of these guys got to understand their situation a little bit. You look at the Dallas situation, and I do think that Brandon Aiyuk could take some lessons from that, which is, hey, like, Dak's obviously going to get paid. One way or the other, that deal is going to get done at some point. And Lamb is the one that really should be taking the price cut. And if you're Brandon Aiyuk looking around the league, you're not Justin Jefferson. You're not like the guy.
All right, well, Ferris Khan's already complaining this morning. I came to watch commercials, and Monty came on. Can y'all ratchet down the monetization? We don't control it.
Bruh.
We don't control it.
How about instead of coming in here and complaining and making it worse for everybody, why don't you just get on YouTube Premium and you won't have to deal with ads anymore like everybody else does?
I cannot stress this enough because we hear this a lot. What does this channel have? 107,000 subscribers, 110,000 subscribers. We do not control the monetization on the channel. There's this big belief that, like, I hit a button every time, Monty, stop playing. I don't control it. I don't moderate the comments.
Like it's a volume now, bro.
I don't control the comments. Like, I don't filter. If you say whatever you say and you get filtered, I don't do that. That's YouTube. I don't play spots. That's YouTube. So trust me, if I played spots, we'd make a hell of a lot more money.
Yeah.
But it is, man.
So let me get this right. Just one more thing. You could be listening to the radio and get 10 minutes of spots in a row, or you can just come here and deal with it. Or again,
and let's get crazy. Here on YouTube, you see that skip button that's in the bottom right-hand corner when a commercial plays? Get wild and hit the skip button. Like it.
Well, Monty, you're making it so they're not skippable, man. Come on. Dude, it's not on us, bro. Like, YouTube's doing what YouTube does.
Ferris, why do the 49ers have the worst stadium built in the last 20 years? No, their stadium on the whole does not suck. Their turf, for whatever reason, is terrible. Their stadium is not bad. Now, are there issues with their stadium? Yes. They had a very small slice of heaven in Santa Clara, California, which essentially is San Jose. Having been there and working at the great KMBR and KGO while that stadium was being built, it was always a really small plot of land. In the Bay Area, it's impossible to find land to build on. Their stadium, and if you get on Google Earth, you can see it. It's oddly shaped. I would agree. The biggest problem is half the stadium is bathing in sun the entire game if you play a day game. So it's not comfortable. But the concessions are amazing. The seating angles are amazing. The technology is amazing. The Wi-Fi is amazing. It's a modern marvel, except the playing surface sucks and one side of the stadium is bathed in sun. But don't kid yourself. That is not a bad place to watch a game.
Yeah.
I don't want to play on that field. But yes, Red Wine, the skip button don't cost you anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, dude.
Right?
Like, well, why are you coming in here saying
yes.
it's us?
Yes, D. YouTube Premium for the win.
Yeah.
Do you know how many of our members are subscribers to YouTube Premium? Because it does work. I'm sorry that it plays so many commercials. Yes, there's a skip button. Like, this is the basic shit that I don't understand that people complain about.
Cashless.
Right? Come on. Giggity, give me more commercial breaks. Jakey needs funds for the food off the roller.
Yeah, dude. Come
exactly
on, bro.
right.
Like, you gotta eat over here, man.
Exactly right. And Jake just moved into a 10,000 square foot house.
It is what it is
for one person. So, he has stuff to do.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Speaking of Ferris, before we get to the Jazz stuff, and trust me, in 5 minutes, we'll get to the Jazz and Lauri Markkanen. Can we talk about Jim Harbaugh real quick? Because this was a hot button issue on the show yesterday, and the comment section was pretty lit about this Michigan cheating scandal. I thought it was interesting that Jim Harbaugh actually addressed it in his LA Charger press conference yesterday. You know, the team that should be still playing in San Diego? Yeah. He coaches them now. And one of the things that I think is very interesting is Jim Harbaugh claims that he is 100% totally innocent of any of the charges.
Yeah, I do have a comment on that. Never lie, never cheat, never steal. I was raised with that lesson. I have raised my family on that lesson. I have preached that lesson to the teams that I've coached. No one's perfect. If you stumble, you apologize, and you make it right. Today, I do not apologize. I did not participate, was not aware, nor complicit in those said allegations. So for me, it's back to work and attacking with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Okay. Michigan fan. I'm talking to you, you poor damaged soul. He says he had no idea. How disappointed are you in Jim Harbaugh? His football program is, because here's what it means. If Jim Harbaugh had no idea, you weren't doing your job. You were derelict in your duties. Your football program was running rampant, out of your control. And basically, you were stealing money from the University of Michigan. That's what that means. Mm-hmm. I had no knowledge of it. So you just let the coaches and the players and your administrative staff just run wild. And this is the same guy that we've been telling you he's not a hero. This is the same guy that you went to court for, you've spent tens of billions of dollars defending, and he left you at the altar.
Well, and what's so incredible is that Michigan fan just takes it hook, line, and sinker. Like,
yeah, Ferris, you know what? He said he had no idea. Guess what? I believe him too. I believe him too. Because Jim Harbaugh is not a good football coach. If you want him to coach your team on the field, good football coach. If you need him to build a program, terrible football coach. He's not a leader. So when you say you believe him, I believe him too. I believe him too.
I don't believe that he had no knowledge. I don't believe. You know what I believe? I believe that Jim pulled one of the greatest schemes that we've ever seen in college football history. Not only on the game itself, but on the University of Michigan. And I believe that scheme is still being perpetrated on little innocent folks over here like Ferris Khan, who just believe this guy's words like they're the gospel for whatever reason. And what's incredible to me is I don't even have a reason to dislike Jim. Like, it's not like Jim killed somebody. It's not like this guy is like a criminal or something.
He didn't kick my dog.
Right? Like, it's not like I'm like, oh man, I woke up today and screw Jim Harbaugh. No, what I look at is, hey, you undermine the integrity of the game just on a baseline level. For any college football fan, that should be like a cardinal sin.
And now you are admittedly incompetent.
Yeah, exactly.
I believe you. You're telling us that you had no control over your coaching staff. I believe you. You're telling us that you were not good enough to beat Ohio State or any other significant team. And I believe you. I believe you. I'm all in, Jimmy. I believe you. You're not a good football coach. You're not a leader of men. You're not a maker of men. I believe you 100%. The Ferris, I'm with you. I believe him 100%. I think.
Wait, did that just happen? Did you and Ferris just agree on something?
You know, I think that all these idiots out there are like, oh, there's Conor Stallions was on his own.
Fine Steeler guy.
We now know that's not the truth. We now know you are the father, right? Like the idea, and I think Ferris yesterday was out here talking about he was a lone wolf. There's a mountain of evidence that says he was not a lone wolf. He was on the sideline at Central Michigan. Whether or not you want to wrap your head around it, Sharon Moore has turned over 52 deleted text messages. And by most people's account, there are hundreds more amongst the football department. There are 52 at a minimum that we know about that were deleted and recovered. And Sharon Moore is cooperating with that investigation.
It's not good, dude.
It is the idea that he did this on his own. Why did they fire him then? And why did they not? And again, I'm just asking for a friend. If Jim Harbaugh's as innocent as he says he is, why didn't they go in front of that judge? Why didn't they go in front of a judge in Michigan when they sued the Big Ten and the NCAA, asking for a stay of action against Jim Harbaugh? They were in court, ready to go, to stop them from suspending him the last 3 games of the year. The judge was a former Michigan football player in your backyard, a graduate of Michigan Law School. Why didn't you go before that judge? Oh, because the evidence was overwhelming. The evidence was overwhelming. And to this day, it's more overwhelming now than it was then.
Yeah.
Come on. It's wild to me that Jim Harbaugh has the balls to stand up there and say, it's totally innocent. Well, you enjoy that 10-year show cause that just put an end to your college football career.
Yeah.
Sharon Moore, good luck, friend. You're going to take a pretty big rip for this during the season. He is going to get suspended. Sharon Moore is going to have a show cause. His coaching staff from last year, there's talk about 6 coaches getting a show cause.
Yeah.
So if Conor Stallions was a lone wolf, and again, Michigan fan, this is what you can't get away from. Jim Harbaugh is guilty. If Conor Stallions was a lone wolf, Jim Harbaugh is guilty. If Jim Harbaugh knew what was going on, Jim Harbaugh is guilty. So the lone wolf argument on either side, the evidence is overwhelming that he knew, that the staff knew. And if they didn't know, which now is just impossible, we know they knew based on the evidence in that notice of allegations. Just explain to me, how is it Conor Stallions, what did you say, a lone wolf or acted on his own, whatever the verbiage you want to use is. How is that a defense? It's not, because and if you're going to ride that, all you're saying is Jim Harbaugh's incompetent.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. So I'm here for it, man. Like I'm here for it. I'm here for the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that Jim Harbaugh is one of those people where it's just like, hey, you either love the guy or you hate the guy. And you're either going to choose to deal in reality and deal in factual conversation, or you're going to sit here and believe this guy hook, line, and sinker. And if you're the latter, I can't help you.
What's amazing to me is it's gone from we did nothing wrong to, oh, well, I mean, everybody does it, to he was a lone wolf and, Michigan's totally blameless.
You forgot about Ryan Day's brother investigating.
Right. Don't forget Ryan Day's brother, the PI.
Yeah.
Who you all tried to throw under the bus. And all the Michigan bloggers and the on 3 24/7 your mom's house.com.
Yeah.
Oh, we're innocent. You're not innocent. You're not you cheated.
You are who we thought you were from the beginning, dude.
You cheated, you got caught, and you won. You still won. They're not ripping your wins. They're not ripping your championship away. They don't vacate championships anymore. And I love in the comment section, like, oh, bro, they vacated wins for Notre Dame. Yeah, great. Notre Dame cheated. We cheated and didn't win, by the way. And Notre Dame was an academic scam. You guys remember that? What was that, 2013 or whatever? Notre Dame had people allegedly taking tests for players, and they vacated wins that year. So you're lucky that the NCAA is now toothless and that it's pretty widely believed that you're not ripping championship. And I love everybody who's like, death penalty, USC. That doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. There's no such thing as the death penalty.
Yeah.
Are you going to take a 2-year postseason ban? I think at a minimum. Are you going to lose recruiting on and off campus? At a minimum. Are you going to take a pretty significant scholarship reduction? At a minimum. Are you still going to have to pay all of those scholarships? At a minimum. Are you still going to have to pay all of your revenue? You are. Are you going to take a revenue distribution reduction from the Big Ten? You are. Because that's how you're going to get Michigan. We can sit here and be like, oh, bro, they didn't win that championship. Yeah, well, unfortunately for you, Ohio State, we all watched it happen.
Yeah, and that's the hard part is that even though you did this, you still beat those teams in the playoff, in my opinion, straight up. I mean, I don't think that you were able to go out and scout Bama with regularity. I mean, you would never have, you wouldn't have said to yourself 5 weeks into the season, yeah, we're going to play Bama in the college football playoff, so better send Buddy down to Tuscaloosa. Like, you weren't doing that. You were scouting the Big Ten heavily. So what the haters of Michigan can't get away from is you still lost to a team that somehow, like you knew who they were and you still lost. And again, I always point this out specifically with Bama. Bama didn't lose because Michigan was better. Bama lost because they didn't execute in the game.
They didn't snap the football.
Come on, man.
I think the thing you can't get away from on both sides of this, Michigan was the most talented, I think the best team on the field. I don't even argue that. But you look at, for instance, Conor Stallions being on the sideline in Central Michigan coaching gear, videotaping Michigan State. Like, there's no getting away from that. And in the notice of allegations, they specifically say our investigation found that Conor Stallions was on the sideline at Central Michigan, videotaping Michigan State. And the thing that I love is, why else would he be at Central Michigan? Do you really think Central Michigan's trying to steal Michigan State's sign in-game live while it's happening? When he was not communicating with coaches, which again is in the narrative. He was there videotaping Michigan State signs so that Michigan knew what Michigan State was going to do.
Yeah, you would have had a better disguise had you wore a headset.
It's crazy.
Legitimately.
It is crazy to me. Pete Forte gets 10 Monty Show memberships. Thank you, Pete. Appreciate that. Always a pleasure. Big Daddy Magic's a new member of the Monty Show.
Dude is back.
Love it. Big Daddy Magic, always good to see you. Big Daddy Magic always sends me broken Facebook links so I TikTok and Instagram, and he's always DMing me like broken links and stuff. I can never see the stuff you send me. Oak State James for $5. If Harbaugh didn't know he's guilty of not being a good supervisor, he should know what his people are doing. Well, it's not that he's guilty of being a bad supervisor. If he didn't know what his staff and coaches were doing, that's called a lack of institutional control, and it's a level 1 NCAA violation. And Jim claims to be innocent. Well, you self-reported and admitted COVID period recruiting violations. How innocent are you? Right? You did. And listen, you did what you had to do to win a national championship because you knew you weren't good enough to win without cheating.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it. 100%. I understand it. It's a wee fence, Tanner says. Yeah, I totally agree. It's a wee fence. It's a wee fence. Welcome to the nightmare. Yes, thank you. Just had to hit the skip button. So tough. That was on my life.
Yeah, it's really difficult, man.
I'm saying. Sharon Moore knew sign stealer guy is not a lone wolf. Sharon Moore knew.
Yeah, and there's proof of that.
So the idea, the lone wolf thing,
it's a terrible argument.
It's just
a weak ass.
It is a cockless, ballless, gutless argument.
Yeah.
That he would, like a year ago, maybe. But then I just go back to, okay, he was a lone wolf. Are you telling me that vacuum salesmen didn't know?
Vacuums are my thing.
Blake Corum.
So you're telling me that Balake had an LLC in his name with Conor Stallions, and he didn't have any idea what Conor Stallions was doing. They're friends. He had no idea what they're doing. They're business partners. You had no idea he was doing this. Oh, but Monty, he didn't know about that LLC. Conor Stallions forged his name. Why isn't Conor Stallions on federal charges then? That is a federal offense. No criminal charges here? I'm a little surprised. I know the FBI is busy chasing Donnie, but you're telling me they're letting Conor Stallions just slide on a federal offense. Fraud and forgery? Boy, Conor Stallions is living right, apparently. Come on, guy. San Diego State Glenn, apologize or deny. Harbaugh chose the deny route. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. James, I just hit the skip button too. I don't know why we have so many ads playing, but I appreciate it.
I know that in our members only group, we had some conversation about how, people don't like to stay to watch the show, and we're burning people out with politics, but YouTube's playing a bunch of ads because there's a few people watching. So, it's fine.
Nobody watches our show.
Yeah.
Nobody's watching our show. Red Wine, TCU beat Michigan because they used reverse sign stealing tactics. That's the only thing that makes the playoffs make sense.
Okay. Why are we going back to TCU?
Because they beat Michigan. I don't know how TCU beat Michigan, but the sad thing for Michigan fans is you guys just deserve better. And all the Michigan fans in the comments section yesterday, I totally agree with you. We sold our souls to the devil. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And I think 90% of Michigan fans recognize that Ward Manuel and Santa Ono, and you sold yourself to the devil.
Yeah.
You begged and filleted and did everything you could do to keep the devil in your football department. And he still left you at the altar. He bailed on you knowing what was coming. He knew what was coming. And you still begged him to stay. It's wild to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, what's going to happen when eventually in 2097, we actually get an NCAA ruling on this?
Biggest kick in the balls you'll ever get.
And you wind up with guys like Sharon Moore. And Sharon Moore is a really interesting example. Sharon Moore is forever tainted by this. Do you understand that national championship, and it's not going anywhere, in my opinion, that national championship is forever tainted by this. Your finest hour is now in the clouds because you married up to the devil. You married up to a guy who forced you, and your lust for athletic achievement, you threw all of your ethics and your morals under the bus. You compromised the greatness of Michigan as a university.
To win some ball games.
Which is wild to me. And we talk about this with BYU all the time. Never, ever play a football game on Sunday. Never, ever go away from the honor code. Never, ever compromise your principles that are rooted in the LDS church.
Yeah.
And they don't. Yet Michigan did. Congratulations. And I think the hardest part for Michigan fan to understand is we're not laughing at Jim Tressel and tattoos anymore. We're not laughing even at Urban Meyer being a complete domestic violence facilitating crap face while groping some blonde at a sports bar. We're not mocking those guys anymore. We're looking right at you guys and laughing in your face because nobody believes that you were the best team last year. Nobody recognizes you as the unquestioned national champion. You sold your soul to the devil, dude. And now here's the price. He's coming back now.
Mm-hmm.
Now the devil is asking for his
Time
pound
to
of
pay
flesh.
up.
That's exactly right. Damian Fowler, I just don't understand why being a lone wolf matters. He was on the Michigan staff when this happened. He was cheating for Michigan, all for Michigan. So why does being a lone wolf matter? It doesn't. It doesn't explain anything. It doesn't justify anything. It doesn't absolve anyone.
No, Michigan fan is running out the lone wolf garbage because they don't want Jim and the staff to be involved. That's why. They want you to believe, oh, well, Conor just went off and he was this rogue lone wolf agent inside the staff. Nobody else knew what he was doing. He just, he went and did his own thing. And, Jim, had no idea. Jim was just trying to figure out how they were going to, make sure their mic was in the A gap, dude. Like, Jim had no idea. That's what Michigan fan wants you to believe. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm just not going to go down that route because the evidence is very clear here. It's no longer, notice in the comments section what's not being said anymore. Oh, well, you guys just hate Michigan. You guys you're an SEC show. You hate Michigan and the Big Ten.
No, we're fat. I'm fat, old, the Mormon guy.
Right,
who's a BYU fan.
Right. And, tomorrow it'll be that we're
a Big 12 show.
And we're not getting that in the comments.
Don't forget the weeks we were Ohio State fans.
Yeah.
If that's ever been the case.
So I'm just telling you, man, like Michigan fan doesn't, and I've also said this since the day this story came out back last year. Dude, if I'm Michigan fan, I would be celebrating the fact that you pulled one on the entire system, bro.
Yeah.
Like I'd be saying, yeah, you know what? We did this and we still beat you in the playoff. Like, you knew we were cheating. You knew that that's how we had our regular season.
They did nothing
success.
to punish. The Big Ten and the NCAA did nothing to punish Michigan in real time. Suspending Jim Harbaugh for 6 games last year had absolutely no impact. Jim Harbaugh was able to be with the team on game day.
Yeah.
He was just not allowed to be on the sidelines or at the stadium during the game. That's not a penalty. It's not a penalty. Like, you got away with it. And that's why all of these arguments about how, it didn't impact the game on the field, or it's wild to me.
Yeah.
The question about the lone wolf. All of the evidence says that he was anything but a lone wolf. But I think there's just this I don't even know what you call, like, do you look at Jim Harbaugh as a god, or do you envy him, or is he a hero? Like, that's all that I can, that's all I can think of.
The best you've had in how long?
Yeah. Tanner Plummer, Big Daddy Magic is back, and we're all better for it. We're all better for it. UW fan Jim, Bama 100% lost to Michigan. Lost because Michigan was better, at least on that day. You got to snap a football.
Yeah.
As simple as it is. Dude that abides, but let's get back to them Lions giving the Giants the business joint practices. Give me all the Honolulu blue Kool-Aid. I'm telling you. I think the Detroit Lions will win the division. I think I need to know what the Packers have. I think that's one of the great unknowns of this offseason. Anytime you pay your quarterback that's unproven and untested that kind of bread.
Is it fair to say he's untested?
Yes. Yes,
Even
it
with
is.
the playoff win.
Yes, it is. I think he is wholly untested. I do not believe that Jordan Love has shown you that he's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
Well, I would agree with that. Yeah. I would agree with that.
When you make that kind of bread, Brandon Aiyuk, you are now, the expectations change. The results on the field has to change. Jordan Love is not shown to be that guy. Is he going to be? Yes. He has exceptional quarterback coaching talent surrounding him. He'll be a better quarterback this year. He ain't going to be the highest paid quarterback kind of quarterback.
And I would agree with you that he's getting paid based on their belief he's going to turn into that guy. It's not a thing where he definitely wasn't this guy who balled out on his rookie contract, and that's why he got paid.
Yeah. Tanner Plummer, well, the LDS Church has compromised their principles before, so if there's enough public pressure, them compromising again isn't off the table. They're never going to do that for sports. They're not. And how are you awake? Are you not drunk in pain over Ray Al Salt Lake's absolute disaster? Matt Ritson. Harbaugh must used famously word Sergeant Schultz don't know nothing exactly. The awkward guy. The Monty Show is a Big 12 show truck stop conference for the win.
Yeah, next question.
Big Daddy Magic, me and Monty are Victor.
He's made his return.
First comment back is
Victor's
Victor.
the way.
Jeremy Severe, problem. Okay. Hey, Marty, you have said multiple times that you don't like Harbaugh. I don't. Jim Harbaugh, I am so glad he is not the coach of the Chicago Bears. Now, Eber sucks. I'd rather have Johnson from Detroit or somebody other than. But we'll see. Midweek Kook. So in 10 years, will we finally have resolution to this? The NCAA is so slow. Big Ten loves scandals.
Seriously.
Apparently they do. The NCAA. I think the reason that you won't see, I think Jim Harbaugh gets a 10-year show cause. I think Sharon Moore probably gets half that at 5 years. The text messages are damning. Like the conversations, and I don't know. We'll see. Anytime that somebody like Sharon Moore cooperates with an investigation, the evidence comes out, because what cooperation means is he's giving them what they're asking for, and they're not asking for his text messages just to see if there happens to be something. Generally, when you get to this phase, and I've seen a lot of these NCAA investigations, once you get to the, hey, he's cooperating, they already know the answer. They know what you did. They're now, and it's the Jim Harbaugh COVID period thing, that he denies still to this day, publicly denies any wrongdoing, even though he self-suspended 3 games. When you don't cooperate, it makes it worse. And I would go as far as to say Jim Harbaugh will never coach in college football again because of the COVID period violations and his lack of cooperation involved with that, not the sign stealing operation. Because if he'd have just said, yeah, we did this. Yep. We did this. This would be over with now.
He'd still be at Michigan.
I think he was going to leave Michigan. Jim Harbaugh never loved Michigan. And I think, Michigan fan, you need to wrap your head around that. Jim Harbaugh was looking for a gig 3 years into that when he was about to get fired. You paid him a ton of money, and he just couldn't win games. And I think Jim Harbaugh is just so disingenuous. Jim Harbaugh believes the lies that he tells himself. And it makes it easier to stand up there yesterday and say he had no idea. Did you think you just transformed all these guys and all of a sudden you were the best coach in college football? You could not, quite literally, Jim Harbaugh could not win a game of consequence. And then Conor Stallions showed up. And you started winning, and you think this was a lone wolf? Ooh, breaking news. Tim Walz is the running mate for Kamala Harris. We'll have to get into that. Because that's an interesting pick. Tim Walz is, according to, let's see, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, NBC News, CBS News. I'm getting all the notifications. All say that it's Tim Walz.
Social media.
It's all Tim Walz. So that's it's a very interesting pick. Very, very interesting pick. How long until Donnie drops a CTE on Tim Walz? Well, he's got CTE, bro. He's crazy Tim Walz. Okay. It's very interesting. We'll see what the NCAA does. A couple more, because then we got to get to the coaches poll in the NBA. Let's see. How are the people who hired Jim Harbaugh still employed? Big Blue Horse is a member for 9 months. That's a good question. Ward Manuel. Is Ward Manuel a good athletic director? The athletic director at Michigan.
He is good at surviving. I don't know that makes him a good athletic director. He has had 2 major scandals, a lot of issues, but seemingly just continues to survive. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I think in this new age of college athletics, I don't know how you can be this bad in college basketball and survive. And to have this level of scandal multiple years in a row in your football department and have, what's the right way to say it? That Juwan Howard thing and still survive. It's wild to me. It's absolutely wild to me. Oh, look, wet blanket. BS. Oak State basketball cooperate. Do you know how long? And was the only school to get in trouble. Never cooperate.
Thanks for your, once a week contribution. That always makes it better.
So you think, and I'm just asking because, I'm not on your level of greatness, wet blanket. You think that the NCAA is the same as it was during the Eddie Sutton situation and the Oak State basketball said, you think this is the same NCAA that went after USC? You think this is this, like, what are you talking about? Let's see. Oh my God. Hell yes. Let's go, Tim Walz. Tim Walz is your pick. But what have we been telling you? This is going to be the response to her VP pick. And it's just getting started. It's just getting started. Wow. Alexander Gaugenauer. I hope I got that. Fuck are you? Gaugenauer? I hope I got that right, dude. Sorry. Alex, hello.
Hello.
West Virginia football. Mountain Mama. Undefeated regular season except for a loss to Pitt. Then nail-biter loss in the Big 12 championship. Sneaks into the playoff, wins the first round, then loses. Okay.
Okay, great, man. Hey, yeah.
Okay.
Great. Nice.
Okay. We'll see what happens there. Real quick on the coaches pool.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the coaches pool? Now is it just, are they watching the same game that we're watching? You got to go to the 10th spot to get out of the SEC or the Big Ten. And not for nothing, USC is ranked 23rd. And Arizona's ranked 20. I'm sorry, did you just say that Arizona's better than USC?
Hell out of here with that.
I don't know what Arizona's doing to get this much respect for their football program. I don't know if it's that people didn't like Jed Fish or if people think that, their program's better off without Jed, or if the program, seemingly, is stealing signs to gain an advantage.
Lone wolf.
Lone wolf syndrome. I don't know what they're doing down in Tucson, but everybody this offseason has been all about Arizona, and they have improved. That program's better. You're not better than USC, dude.
And you're not better than you were with Jed Fish.
Yeah. Like,
now,
come on.
Granted, you still are the Fighting Fafitas, and I'm all about that. But you have Kansas 24th? Kansas is better than Clemson and Tennessee. They're better than Oklahoma. Arguably, they're better than K-State. Come on. And how is Oklahoma State 18th?
That's some shade, dude. When Utah's sitting there 14, I believe it is.
Here in Stillwater, I think you guys know, because we've talked about it a lot. Alan Bowman.
I'm a man.
I mean, he's pretty amazing. He's no Brandon Whedon.
But he'll do.
But
Stay hard.
Alan Bowman. Well, no, not Preston Stone. Which is amazing that Preston Stone's cock is not in the top 25. Like that's difficult for Oak State James to digest. But see Preston, he digests Preston's. Anyway.
I don't know. I don't know if I don't know quite. I don't quite.
Yeah, we should move on. My point is, how is Alan Bowman, an Alan Bowman helmed offense, 18th. Man, that's rough.
It's clear bias, man. I don't know. Like,
but for a national championship team, how is Michigan 8th? I mean, are these guys and again, I am just as a lone wolf. Here I am as a lone wolf, just making observations on the the world of college football. How is Michigan the national championship? Michigan Wolverines. How are they 8th? Well, I mean, they lost Conor Stallions. The lone wolf has left the den. I have to think that that's why they're only 8th.
Vexes me.
I mean, it's tough. And I hope you guys will be okay. I mean,
how are you going to survive? I mean, how are you going to get by this season without your lone wolf trekking through the cold winter?
Now, having said that, Lane Train and his hot-ass blonde girlfriend are 7th or 6th in the country, which I think is amazing. And now, luckily for us Notre Dame fans, Marcus Freeman can actually celebrate because they're 7th, so he doesn't have to go past 10, which Marcus Freeman is incapable of counting past 10. So they're 7th, so he
Notre Dame our mother. See what he did there? It's like 10
guys on the field.
Kind of all works together
against Ohio State.
Yeah.
Goal line. Now, if you're Deion Sanders, you're in real trouble here because okay. Again, I'm just throwing it out there for you.
Which is different than throwing it in.
Right. Like Preston Stone and Oak State James.
Right.
Very different.
Right.
Severe coaches poll, in my opinion, are traditional power biases. Are you saying there's a bias in this poll to the Big Ten and the SEC?
What?
A lot.
Georgia, Ohio State. Does Ohio State live up to the expectations?
Should Texas be number 2, not number 4?
And here's the other thing. I was talking to a college football guy yesterday about Dan Lanning at Oregon.
Dan?
Is anybody outside of duck season on this show, is anybody rooting for Oregon? Or is everybody unified on the anti-Oregon ticket?
You don't always have to be negative.
Because there were a lot of people who were not happy to see the Ducks and their stupid inflatable quail up there at number 3 in the coaches poll.
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely hateable, no doubt.
How good is Oregon? Is Oregon legitimately, because Brett McMurphy has them number 1 in the country. And excluding 2 losses to Washington, yeah, we'll just throw those out. Oregon averaged 32-point winning margin per game and 250 yards more on offense per game against its 12 opponents last year. You can't just dismiss the Washington. They had Rome Odunze, the greatest wide receiver that's ever lived.
Stay hard.
I don't know how you just, outside of the Washington, that Washington wasn't good last year, were they? Well, I mean, how good could they be? They lost to cheating Jim Harbaugh and his lone wolf. I mean, they did play for a national championship and they had big Penix energy.
Right.
Washington was good, and Oregon, you weren't as good as Washington last year. So I think it's awfully difficult to just dismiss those two. But I wonder how good Oregon is. I am really curious to watch them compete because Dan Lanning's going to have them all red-assed every Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, they're going to punish a lot of teams in the Big Ten. No question about it. They are going to beat people up.
We'll see. Midweek Coug. Oregon going to choke a game like always. Well,
Oregon gonna choke a game. Now, as a Washington State fan, is it just an obligation to hate Oregon? Like, is that what it is?
Well, we're gonna find out. I think the Oregon State game in the middle of September is a big one. I think that's at Reeser. That's in Corvallis. And then, of course, you've got Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State's at Autzen. But you got to go to Michigan. And granted, again, they're lone wolf. He's gone. So we'll see.
Fine Steeler guy.
Michigan is not nearly as talented as they were a year ago. And I think they're going to be outside the college football playoff by a significant amount.
Yeah.
I think. Here's to Texas crapping out this year so they can be clowned again. Texas isn't back, bro. Dude that abides. Michigan is replacing almost the entire starting offense and secondary. Unproven QB play. They should be lower.
Yeah, but again, they're Michigan, so they won't be.
And without Conor Stallions, I don't know how they win a game. I should really stop because you guys will think I'm serious and I'm not. Honey, do you ever watch Michigan football? I don't.
My bad.
I'm busy watching Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Lose a lot. Let's see. I looked at that poll and laughed. Now more than ever, it's time for NFL model. No polls, no bias, just wins and losses. Exactly right. Exactly right. That is what it is. Yeah. Hour number 2 of the Monty Show is always presented by our good friends at Canyons Golf in Park City, the official golf course of the Monty Show. Played an exquisite round of golf. Finally, my wife has come back to golf earth. She played the worst round I've ever seen her play. And she was close to snapping a club this weekend, which I took great pride in. I've never broken a club out of frustration in the last 3 months. Bro,
dude.
2 weeks ago, I was swinging a pitching wedge and grounded it so badly. Like, it's so frustrating. Golf can be challenging.
So wait, what was the technique? Was the technique like over the knee?
She hit a bad shot with her 3-wood and she put it on over her shoulder. And you know that move where you're going to slam the club on the ground? She was this close. But then she would have to admit that she understands how I feel at certain moments.
Which,
everybody who plays golf on the regular has felt that moment.
Yes.
I actually played pretty well. It's funny. We were driving home and I realized I did not hit a single long iron on Sunday, which is not to be confused for driving the ball well.
Right.
Which I did not sometimes I did occasionally, only not really. But that's not the point. I love Canyons Golf. I think the vistas and the views that you drive the ball from, I think there is nothing like playing mountain golf. When you hit a 300-yard drive and you're just watching that ball cruise, like there's nothing like that. And you don't get it just about anywhere else. I love it. You're playing at a world-class resort at Park City Mountain Resort, Canyons Golf. You're paying municipal prices to play world-class resort golf. Go do it. The fairways are lush. The views are beautiful. We were looking at deer running up above tee boxes. Like, it's just a beautiful place to play golf. And when it's 100 degrees in the valley, which seems like that's never going to end, it's 80 degrees in the mountains and you're playing lovely mountain golf with a slight breeze. It's what you want. And then you can go and have an unbelievable lunch in the village at Canyons Mountain Resort. Park City Mountain Resort, Canyons Village. It's just a great experience. The carts all have GPS. You listen to music. You have a good time. Unless you're Mrs. Monty trying to figure out why she said to me, I don't understand why people play golf. She had that moment. And as somebody that I love that because it tells you she's improving.
Yeah.
Because her expectation is that she will play good rounds of golf. And the biggest mistake that Mrs. Monty ever made was driving a golf ball 200 yards.
Yeah.
And she has a unique ability to hit a ball 200 yards off the tee with a nice little draw. And then when you don't do that and you don't know why you can't do that, it is absolutely infuriating.
Maddening.
So it tells you she's improving her game. But Canyons Golf, love it. Yeah, can't wait to get up there this weekend. Am I the only one that's tired of it being hot? I'm tired of it being 100 degrees. Like, we were standing out in our yard last night playing golf, working on our golf swings. and the sun at 6:30 at night is just penetrating your rectum like a death ray.
Yeah.
It's just so hot. Man. It is so incredibly warm. I am ready for it not to be 100 degrees. And I am ready for Lauri Markkanen to sign a new contract with the Utah Jazz. He is eligible today. It is August 6th. And again, I will continue to tell you to have patience, because I don't believe that Lauri Markkanen signs this deal today. I don't think there is any hurry, because it has been an interesting week of revelations on this deal. The Jazz have an absurd asking price for Lauri Markkanen. We've talked about it, whether it is, Johnson and Vassell, a starting price at Golden State that is Podziemski or nothing. Their asking price for Lauri Markkanen is outrageous. And I think the other part of this quotient that has come into light so much, and again, Tony Jones at The Athletic had it first, and talking to people around the situation, I think Lauri Markkanen is tired of being traded. I think his family is tired of being traded. I think he does not want to uproot his family again and play this game where he's got to go in, find a way to get comfortable in a new market, whether that is San Antonio or San Francisco. And I simply believe that Lauri Markkanen does not want to be traded. Would he accept a trade? I'm sure he would. But here are the complexities of that deal. A lot of people don't understand the contract situations. I did 3 national interviews yesterday talking about this. And on a national network that I am not going to name or call people out on a national network yesterday, a host who is known for his NBA coverage had no idea that Lauri Markkanen wasn't going to be paid $18 million this coming season. And I just asked myself, how is it possible that people have so little understanding of Lauri Markkanen's contract situation? He is on an expiring deal for $18 million. That's absolutely the truth. He is going to make, in my opinion, between 35 at a minimum and 42 at a maximum from the Utah Jazz this year. And I'm telling you, that's very difficult for Golden State to even have the conversation on. So I think it is likely that we were completely wrong about the percentages or the likelihood of a Lauri Markkanen deal. I am sitting here today at 20%. When I was at 60%, I feel like I was completely wrong. I don't know that the Jazz were ever going to trade Lauri Markkanen unless they got blown away. And Jake, I think it's absolutely ridiculous, because if you keep Lauri Markkanen, I think you are absolutely a rudderless ship.
Yeah, I think that, Markkanen's a great player. This isn't a conversation as far as the Jazz are concerned around Markkanen's ability or like his fit on the team. It's much more to me a conversation of where the Jazz are going. And I don't think the Jazz know where they're going. I don't think that there's a game plan. I don't think that the Jazz are like, yeah, we're looking to compete, for a championship in 26-27 or 28-29. I think the Jazz are tasked with, hey, don't spend money and keep people in the building. That's what I think the task is. I think the task is, hey, we need to conserve money. We need to up the profit margin a little bit for the next couple of seasons because we've done some things here, and that's what is going to take place. And that's why, again, just in my opinion, I you're not going to see the Markkanen sign his deal today because obviously, like he just said, Markkanen's tired of being traded. So if you sign it tomorrow, you can't be traded this year due to the CBA policies. So he'll probably sign it tomorrow. And I would guess it's going to be to the upper 30s. I would be surprised if the Jazz signed him for more than 40, considering that you're an organization not really trying to spend a lot of money right now. So if it's more than 40, I'd be a little surprised. But ultimately, the bigger issue and the bigger talking point with this organization right now is the direction you're going. If you sign Markkanen to, again, let's say that Markkanen signs a big deal. Let's say that he signs a 4-year deal somehow and goes ham, and somehow this goes sideways. If you were to sign him to a longer term deal at let's say 38 a year over the course, your average annual value is like 38 a year. I think that's a mistake. I think that he's probably not going to be here when you're actually ready to start competing for championships. And that's where I say to Lauri Markkanen, you very well may be burned out on being traded, but are you more tired of being traded than you are wanting to win a championship? Because you're in your prime. Like, understand your position. Like, this is the Brandon Aiyuk thing. Understand who you are, understand how much money you should be making, and understand what it's going to take for you to go out and compete for a championship as a player.
And interestingly, I did an interview in Chicago on Monday, and which was yesterday, because today is only Tuesday. Talking about how Lauri Markkanen has changed from his time with the Bulls to his time with Cleveland to now his time with the Jazz. And the answer is, I don't think he's changed that much. The statistics and the performance on the court, certainly, but he is the featured guy. He is the best player on this team. It's not in question. He was, in my opinion, in a bad system in Cleveland, and I think he was miscast as a young player in Chicago. I think he is in his prime now. I think this is as good as we are going to see from Lauri Markkanen. And I think if the Jazz pay him, they are a rudderless ship. Because you have this situation where the Jazz are under the minimum. And what that means is each team has to spend a minimum amount of money. Currently, the Jazz are under that minimum. The Lauri Markkanen contract will bring them up to that number. Depending on what it is, it'll bring them to that number at a minimum. It'll bring them to that number. And the reason that's so significant is because the biggest part is you then are getting your distribution of luxury tax money. Because what the NBA does is they make teams that go over a certain limit pay the luxury tax. That money is evenly distributed amongst the clubs. So if you are under the minimum, you don't get that money. And if let's say you're 10 million under the minimum, or probably more like 5 million, you have to take that 5 million and pay it to the league at the end of the year. And it is distributed to the other clubs. And if you are under that minimum, and this is something I think a lot of people don't understand, if you are under that minimum, the day that training camp opens, you have to pay that amount at the end of the year. It does not matter what you do during the season. At the beginning of training camp, you have to be at or above that minimum salary number. They need the Markkanen contract to do that. And if you're paying him, let's call it 40 million even. If you're paying him 40 million and you do that beyond today, he's going to be on your roster all season long. And the question is, are you trying to get Cooper Flagg? Or are you trying to be a rudderless ship that's not good, that's not the worst, that just winds up 5-6 games out of a playoff spot? Because that's no man's land. That quite literally is zero direction.
But what also is it? It's also profitability. And I hate to say that, but it is profitability. You're spending basically the least amount of money you're able to spend on your roster, right? By signing Markkanen. Because what does signing Markkanen do? Like you just said, it gets you past the minimum. So you don't, you're not paying any type of fee or fine or anything to the league. And then also from a fan base making money, perspective, it puts butts in seats. And that's what this town does. That's what Salt Lake City does.
Yeah, I think Ryan Smith, the owner of the Jazz, is worried about his public perception. I think he does not want to be seen as a guy who's doing anything less than the minimum to win games. And I think you look at where the Jazz are now, and again, nobody in this town is going to question Ryan Smith. Nobody's got the courage to do that. Nobody is going to call him out for the fact that signing Lauri Markkanen to a massive contract, and at $40 million, it's a massive contract. Signing Lauri Markkanen to that kind of number where you are right now is a mistake. Having Jordan Clarkson on this team still to this day is a mistake. Having John Collins on this roster right now is a mistake. Why are you not trading those guys? You were never, and I think this goes to this point on public perception. You were never getting Paul George. You were never, in my opinion, getting Bridges. You were never even close. You were not even in the conversation.
Right.
They've made the baseline minimum effort. They've done things just so they can say they've done things. And if you wind up with Lauri Markkanen on this team, stop telling me you're trying to win championships, because you're not. Stop telling me that you're doing everything you can do to be competitive, because you're not. If you keep him on this team, you are either not going to play him, 40 games? We're going to have phantom injuries, or because you've got to play this young core. You've got to figure out what Hendricks is.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to figure out, again, Danny Ainge kind of tipped his hand, but Keontae George isn't a number one guard. What is Kyle Filipowski? I don't know. He needs a chance to make or break. Like, you've got to play the young guys here. You've got to. Walker Kessler has to be your starting center for 82 games a year. Period. He's got to be that guy. But if you're playing John Collins, can you play Markkanen, Collins, and Kessler on the floor together? You've never found a way to do that. And you've had a whole season to do it, and you weren't able to do it.
Yeah, I don't know that the X's and O's are there to support it. Like, you would need a certain roster build to handle that. With point guard play and 2-guard play to kind of work that. And I just don't think that that's where you're at. And the other thing that I look at with this Markkanen situation is how you're using him on the floor. Because
I would agree.
Because you can't tell me that. The folks who were trying to trade for Markkanen, the Spurs, the Warriors, the Kings at one point early in the process, you can't tell me that these teams aren't looking at the game tape and saying, okay, Markkanen's definitely getting more touches in Utah than he would get on our team. So when he comes to our team, his nightly numbers are probably going to go down, 10%, 12%. But how do we get the explosive play out of Markkanen? How do we, because he's going to still go up against, like with the Warriors, he'd be going up against a second or third defender, I think, because you've still got Steph to worry about. You still got guys on that team to worry about if Kuminga pans out. So the point is that I'm not even sure that keeping Markkanen on your team just to get past the minimum salary threshold even helps you down the line with trading him, because teams are not stupid. They can see how that translates. So if you don't play him this year, if you play him, 50 games, if you come up with nights off constantly, how does that impact, how teams view him and how teams view you, frankly, as an organization? Because we talked about how teams were frustrated with Danny Ainge.
Yeah.
How Danny's price is so high.
Multiple seasons in a row holding the NBA free agent trade market hostage.
Now, is that Danny Ainge doing that, or is that Ryan Smith telling Danny Ainge to do that? Because that's what I still...
No, that's Danny doing that. That's Danny Ainge wanting to do... This is them walking right up to the trade Lauri Markkanen line and not doing it. I think people are tired of the game. And this, again, I'll just continue. There's no win here for the Jazz, because whether you want to believe it or not, they're having conversations about trading Lauri Markkanen across the NBA, and they're not executing. You're saying, oh yeah, send me your highest best offer, and you're never getting back to people. And it's one of those things where, what's the upside? Do teams respect Danny Ainge? Yes. Do teams particularly want to do business with Danny Ainge? No, they don't. Because it's a long, drawn-out, painful process. And you can go and get Paul George, and you can go and get Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
You can go and get guys. And I think there's a lot of teams that are frustrated with Danny Ainge to the point where they're not going to leverage themselves to make a deal with him. And I agree with it. You can only pull this garbage after so many off seasons before it begins to do real damage to you.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if Danny Ainge ever builds a winner for the Jazz. If he's ever given all the tools and the ability to go and do what he wants to do and needs to do to build a championship contender here.
The money.
I don't think he will. I think they're so underwater because they brought the NHL franchise here. And the financial investment that takes. And then you've got to spend hundreds of millions of dollars more to just contend for a championship. And you have to pay the luxury tax to contend for a championship. I don't see them doing that because they don't and have not to this point drafted well with Danny Ainge and before Danny Ainge. They haven't developed well before Danny Ainge and with Danny Ainge. And I'm asking again, Jazz fans, because Jazz fans are routinely tell me I have no sources and I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, tell me then, who have they drafted and developed into a stud? You can make the argument you developed Donovan Mitchell to a point. He has become a much, much better defender in Cleveland. And he's become a driving kick player in the mid-range. Never did that in Utah. Okay, Rudy Gobert. You developed Rudy Gobert into one of the best defensive players in the NBA. And again, I want to couch that by saying one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. But you never got anything from him offensively. Never. We always saw the offseason jump shot that never materialized.
Yeah.
And now what are we seeing? They're actually back to the basket, doing back to the basket stuff in Minnesota, becoming a much better free throw shooter in Minnesota. So did you get those guys to a certain point? You did. But you didn't win. And again, I'm just asking, where's the Dante Exum? Where's the Rodney Hood? Where's the Trey Lyles? Where is
Agbaji?
Where's Taylor Hendricks? Where's Keontae George? Where are your young guys that you've drafted, turned into a franchise player? That does not exist in certainly not under Ryan Smith. And certainly, I mean, I guess you could go back to D Faves and Gordon. Those were franchise players. But who else? Where like it just doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And we can go long down the list. It just doesn't exist. My point is, you've got to find a way to change who you are as a franchise. And until Ryan Smith is done investing in the NHL, I don't see that happening. And I would love to, because this is a much better town when the Jazz are good.
Yeah, it is.
Much better town. But to me, I think Ryan Smith has to earn the respect of NBA fans instead of them just blindly being like, man, you're the best. Because that's what we're getting right now.
Well, and you saw how invested the market was when they were playoff good, and there was like, because what this organization is really good at, and I'm not even being snarky, I'm being serious here. What they're really good at is telling a story throughout the season to get people's buy-in. So, hey, we're trying to get in the play-in last year. Hey, we're pushing the play-in.
We're big game hunting.
We're big game hunting, right? Like it's draft night. We're really going to change the course of our organization here. Like they push those narratives, but it doesn't necessarily pan. And
no, it does not.
If Ryan Smith is in fact worried about his perception in terms of like stripping the team down and saving money, then I don't know. Again, I know maybe it's a novel concept, but spend a little bit of money. Like I'm not even saying that you got to be a luxury tax team,
because you don't.
Like, go out and like, I don't know, spend, make some trades, bring in a couple of guys that can play with Markkanen, and so your starting five is at least good enough to make the game close while they're playing. Like, at least do that. That way, you're going to have more people in the building. You're going to have, more excitement around the team.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man. It just, look, I'm not going to sit here and claim to know how Ryan Smith wants to do business or how, he views this situation. I respect Ryan Smith. I appreciate his ability to build a business, but honestly, I'm not convinced that this guy knows how to build a winner, or even right now wants to build a winner. I think what Ryan wants to do is to be the biggest name in town and to just, run the day to day. I think he loves analytics and data and trying to build a business.
Yeah.
I don't think that analytics and data and trying to build a business translates to the NBA salary situation and how to actually go out and get players and build a winner.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what they do because you're probably going to have to renounce Talon Horton-Tucker's $16 million, I would assume. It'll just be really interesting to see, okay, you're going to have $10 million in cap space after you sign Lauri Markkanen to an extension, which I think is going to happen.
Right.
You're going to have $10 million. All right, go get me some big game, dude. Because right now, your highest paid player is John Collins at $26 million, excuse me. And I think that's a guy that you could likely trade before the deadline. And if you wind up trading Collins, Sexton, I don't know what you're doing with Jordan Clarkson.
I don't know either. Like that's even now. Like,
every time I talk about the Jazz on a show, somebody says, what are they doing with Jordan Clarkson?
God, I have no idea.
Don't know. Huge mistake.
Like, because he's not the face of the organization anymore. This is Markkanen's organization.
Huge mistake. Huge mistake. Cody Williams, bust or baller?
Baller, but in another organization. He won't develop. They won't develop his jumper here.
That's going to be the big question. Does he ever shoot the three well? Main event, is the extension going to be only 1 year? No. Why would you sign a 1 year extension? I mean, he's eligible for close to a $200 million deal.
Well, because I think a lot of people thought like, hey, they're going to bump him for 1 year up past $35 million so he becomes eligible and then sign him to a new deal.
They will renegotiate his salary for the upcoming season because, as Jake just said, it's the only way to pay him the maximum value. It raises his maximum total value, and you will sign him to an extension. And I don't know that it makes him more tradable. Nobody's more tradable than $18 million expiring contract for a guy that should be making 40, 50 million. Like, based on his numbers the last 2 years. Yeah. So it's not going to be a 1 year extension. Brandon Butler, the issue is there has to be those players available. I am not taking Levine or Ingram, which are the biggest game out there. I think Brandon Ingram, as we've talked about on the show, is just not, I mean, he's not an option for the Jazz.
Yeah, but I also think that the Jazz weren't interested in those two guys. There were other guys available, man. Like, if you wanted to, you could have taken a run at Bridges, but you didn't take an honest run at him. You didn't take... I agree.
Yeah,
Paul George was never coming to Salt Lake. That's just not a fit. Paul's not that guy. Like, that wouldn't have worked for them.
And you have to trade for somebody because you, at this point, why would Paul George, for any amount of money, take the Jazz over the Clippers?
Well, you wouldn't.
The Jazz over the Sixers. The Jazz over any contender who offered him money. The Lakers.
Especially for a guy who's not won a championship yet.
Why would you do that? You're not going to do that. And I think that you look at somebody like Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen doesn't want to be traded. He's been traded. Wasn't he traded twice in 18 months? Like, he was traded a lot. And that's a lot for a family with kids to go through. So I hear him on that. And this is a great place to live, by the way. But I think guys like Brandon Ingram's going to play half a season. He's going to cost you significant money. And he's ultimately not going to make you a better team.
Right.
It just isn't. And I think when you look at Zach Levine's the same thing. Zach LaVine thinks he's one of the best players in the NBA, and he's not. And he can't stay healthy. And the biggest issue is he's got a knee injury. That's his biggest issue, is the injury is he's got a knee injury for a guy that plays above the rim. Yeah, I'm not interested in that. And he's not popular amongst his teammates. I mean, the guy demanded a trade. A story, by the way, that yours truly broke, and everybody is running.
Well, and I feel like that kind of graduated to like the trade thing. You reported that. Then I feel like a week later, it started coming out that his teammates
didn't like him.
And I feel like once that came out, that was kind of the final nail in the Levine coffin. Because I agree, he's one of the best players for his age in the league when he's healthy, but he's never healthy, and you can't rely on him, and you're not going to make an investment in somebody who plays 40 games a year.
Yep. Severe. So the Utah Jazz are full of sales bros. They're an excellent salesman, but man, I'm not buying that. They're visually marketing. They're terrible.
Yeah.
They don't make videos well. They don't make uniforms well.
Yeah.
They know how to sell tickets. That's an organization that knows how to sell tickets. So, we'll see. UW fan Jim, we need Okie Light James to get these guys off topic. Speaking of which, that's Kyle Filipowski, and his girlfriend is a 10.
No, his girlfriend's like a 35, and he's like a 20.
I still love that fans are like, oh, what do you mean? That's not a problem. Okay. That's cool. I mean, the Kyle Filipowski girlfriend thing is always going to be weird.
And listen, he had a nice little run in summer league. He had a nice little run in summer league.
He did. As a basketball asset, I think Kyle Filipowski is going to be a good player.
Yeah, he's viable.
He's going to be a good player because he can shoot it and he likes to rebound. And he's somebody that can get up and down. No, James, you do this every time. No, I did not miss your paid comment. Where am I going to read your paid comment that says, got my bucked up, headed to work, hoping somehow Lauri ends up as a Maverick. I never thought we would get Clay. There's always hope. I haven't had a chance to fit that in yet. You're so high maintenance sometimes. Lauri will not end up as a Maverick. They don't have the cap to sign him.
Yeah.
They don't have the space. They don't have a salary. And again, I think, James, you've always had an unhealthy affection for Klay Thompson. Like, you think he's prime Warriors Klay Thompson. He's not that guy anymore. He is not that guy anymore.
Yeah, he's got to prove that he can still be.
He's got to prove that he can still defend.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't defend, he becomes measurably less valuable.
Yeah.
If he does not defend. So it is what it is. All right. Good old James tweaking the teat. Just relax. Just relax.
Just hit the skip button, dude. It's fine. Just chill.
Just relax, people. Like, you get so wound up. No, you didn't read my paid comment. Okay.
Then yesterday it was that we didn't read your comment in full.
God, dog. Good news. The Dow is up 106 points. Thank goodness, because yesterday was a bloodbath. Real quick, before we get into pissing everybody off, there's two things I want to get into. Does the stock market reflect your financial situation? Because I think, and I've talked about this forever now, I think most Americans have no clue about the stock market or how it works or what impacts it, or because most people don't own stock. You have a 401k, you have no idea what's made up of that 401k. You're just giving money to your company and hoping for the best, right? Those of us that are active in the market, those of us that have 401ks where we actually manipulate what the money's being used for, we all understand that the stock market is not an indicator of a weak or strong economy. And everybody losing their mind yesterday because the Nikkei dropped and the Dow dropped. And did you guys see the Nikkei in Japan picked up 3,000 points today? Everybody's like, oh, we're in a recession. The market dropped 1,000 points. We're in a recession. Do you guys understand that the market today is 1,000 points light? The market is still year over year up 15%.
Yeah.
We're at this morning, we're up 100 points. It's at 38,809. We're still,
bro. I remember
by the end of the week, it would surprise no one if we were back over 40,000.
Yeah, I remember, what was it, 2-3 years ago when all the rage was, are we ever going to pass 38?
I was watching Miami Vice. This weekend. Charlie Glide, season 2. He said, I'm going to buy myself a new Porsche because the stock market broke 1,500. Now, this was 1984.
Good time, dude.
Amazing.
Bro.
I mean, you're in it for some, Peruvian pure in the stock market. I'm with you.
Houses were like $5. Gas was 2 cents. What it must have been like.
The market's at 38,809. We're going to be over 40,000 is my guess by the end of the week. It's up and down. It's what the market is. And what I want people to understand is the market does not indicate, what's the right way to say it? The saying is what happens on Wall Street does not impact what's happening on Main Street. Middle America. It doesn't fucking matter. Now, if you work at a Google today's probably not the best day of your career. Google, and I just keep telling people, Google's going to lose massive amounts of market share to the Department of Justice. Agree, disagree. It just is what it is. It's a fact. How did Google's Department of Justice lawsuit impact you today? Oh, that's right. It didn't. And the Dow dropping 1,000 yesterday had zero impact on your life. I'm telling you, the elites in this country that want to sell you a bill of goods that the stock market is impacting you, they're only doing that because they're elites and they have millions and millions of dollars in the market.
And they know you don't know anything about it.
The economy is the economy great? It's not. Is it terrible? It's not. Could it be better? It could. Could it absolutely be worse? Yes. Yes, it is. But we're in an election season, and you have half of the politicians telling you how shitty the market is and the economy's terrible, and the other half are telling you how great it is and the economy's robust. It's in the middle. For all of us middle Americans, middle class Americans, it's in the middle.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And I just hope that you don't find yourself going headfirst into, oh my God, the world's ending. It's not ending. The market is going to go down. We're going to have days where it loses 800, 1,000. We're in an election. So does anybody remember my good friend Justin Hintz and I working at Sporting News Radio back in the 08, 09, when Barack Obama is getting elected, right? He wins the election. He's he's going to be president. Every time that guy farted, the stock market dropped 100 points. It was unbelievable. I remember we were sitting at, I think it was whatever sandwich shop was down the street in Culver City. We're sitting there eating lunch, watching Barack Obama give us a speech, and the ticker's on the right side of the screen in the stock market. It's not about you. It's unfortunately not about me. It's not about us. That's what I'm telling you. And it's going to be really interesting to see, where does the market go during the election cycle? Because if I lose too much more money before we really piss people off, I won't be able to afford the $23 heart attack that Costco rolled out. And I am in a very different place nutritionally right now. Like, I'm not eating a lot of any of that stuff. I love cheesecake. They have basically rolled out an orange push-up cheesecake.
Yeah.
For $23.
5 pounds of cheesecake.
Nah, bro.
Like, look, I appreciate Costco's ability to push out new products from the bakery. Like, I think we all have a healthy respect for the Costco bakery and their ability. But this one, I was like, dude, this is overkill. This is like, hey, we're coming to the end of summer. We need to put out, one of those real, shockwave kind of dishes, and we're going to put out a big ass 5-pound cheesecake that everybody seemingly should get behind, because they want to take a break from the 3-pound apple pie. So, I when I saw this, I was like, man, that's so Costco. Isn't it so Costco to put out like a huge dessert style thing and push it hard in email and on social media, and like that's what I feel like Costco's great at, man. I love going to Costco. I love the variety. I love the vibe of the place. Like, it's great. But man, I can't see myself buying a 5-pound cheesecake. And I'm curious, for all the folks in the comment section who have kids or bigger families, is this something that you would consider buying for a Saturday night? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel like it's not cake. That's the thing. It's cheesecake. It's not like traditional birthday cake. If this was like a cool birthday cake thing, I feel like it would be a smashing success.
But people will lap it up. people will lap it up. I appreciate Costco's ability to add new products, period. They finally got Impossible Nuggets, which are just redonkulously good. I love them. I'm a big believer in Impossible. So Impossible went through this rebrand where they changed their packaging. And so they released, as part of the new packaging, they released nuggets that mock chicken nuggets, right? Costco wasn't selling them. And then they added them and they were sold out. And now the Costco by my house, they had, I think, less than 10 bags left in the freezer. I bought 2 of them. I bought 2 of them. It was amazing. I bought a pack of Impossible Burgers. Like, I love them. And they're so much better for you. Now it's still processed food, as my wife likes to point out. I'll eat them all day long. And it is, that's why I love Costco. I can get the things I like. I can get my maple syrup. I can get my peanut butter. I can get my Impossible chicken nuggets. I can get I bought a whole turkey breast this weekend and got my ground turkey, got my blueberries, everything you need. That's what I love about Costco. I go there once a week. Generally, we go to grocery shopping once a week. Do it on Sunday. Saturday in Utah is ridiculous. Yeah. It is.
And by the way, if you're going to get Impossible Nuggets or you're going to try something like that, make sure you have an air fryer to cook them. Don't be the guy that goes home and just throws it in the oven. Like, the oven's fine, does the job. Air fryer is the way to go if you don't have an air fryer.
Wow, James, is that true? Breaking news, VP Harris picked Tim Walz as a running back. What?
Dude.
Stay hard.
Oh my goodness.
Are you sure? Bro, we said that like... that must have come out while I was reading your paid comment.
Hey, look here, man.
My guy. Tim Walz named the vice presidential candidate on Kamala Harris's ticket. I think this is really smart. I think Josh Shapiro, me and the lovely Mrs. Monty were talking over the weekend. Josh Shapiro is a guy that I think would have been very divisive on the right side of the Democratic Party. I think for the conservative wing of their party, I think he'd have had trouble with anti-Semitism, because I do believe in both parties, really, but I do believe on the right-leaning side of the Republican and Democratic Party, you have a significant anti-Semitism problem. And I think Josh Shapiro, with the Palestinian conflict, I think that could have been a jackpot for Kamala's campaign. So I think she probably did the right thing staying away from that. And I think Tim Walz is an everyday American. I think he's a guy that is very much a believer in ag. I think he's very much a believer in gun rights. And he's very much a believer in women's right to choose and a woman's right to be in control of her body and her health care. He is a very, very gifted speaker. He does not use big words. He is not the guy that tries to overtalk you. He simply punches you in the face with the truth. And it's going to be very interesting today in Philadelphia to see how Tim Walz and Kamala Harris come out, and the momentum and the energy that this brings. And again, I think if you are the party of Trump, you're in fucking trouble now, because you look at the latest polling and you look at this graphic in particular, look at the diversity in this graphic, all these different polls, all the date ranges, they're going in the wrong direction for Donald Trump. And this pick of Tim Walz, granted he's from Minnesota. Minnesota's been a Democratic stronghold since the 70s. A Republican candidate for president has not won Minnesota, I think, since 72 or 78. I could be wrong which 70 it is, but since the 70s. These numbers are only going to go in the wrong direction. And I know we had a huge argument over the debate yesterday on this show. Donald Trump has no choice but to debate Kamala Harris now. And while I don't believe necessarily that Donald Trump has lost the election, he needs a moment in time that can shift the polls back in his favor. And Tim Walz makes that moment in time more unlikely, because Tim Walz is a couple of things. Tim Walz is he's from the heartland. Tim Walz is a middle American. Tim Walz is a guy that he relates to you and me. He's a football coach. He's an educator. He's a guy that was an unlikely hero. And he has risen to the governor's chair. And he's become a really strong voice down the middle, in my opinion. And I think when you look at his progressive policy stances, it's hugely important. That he supports Second Amendment rights, I think is hugely important for a lot of Americans. That he is on the side of common sense gun reform, yet doesn't want to talk about, the radical, hey, come and take I'm coming for your guns. That doesn't exist. And what I think Kamala Harris has been trying to say, and Tim Walz is finally going to be able to say on her behalf, is we need common sense gun reform. We need better background checks. We need to limit assault rifles. And I think that message gets through to what I think is the most important demographic here. Moms in the middle of this country. And I think when you talk about some of the demos in these polls, Kamala Harris is winning the black vote now. Mm-hmm. That is unquestioned. What does Tim Walz do for the undecided moderate voter in this country who has kids, who is a mom, because I think undecided women will decide this election. I think they're critical. Tim Walz speaks to the issues that those women and those kids of those women are facing. That's what should scare the party of Trump.
Well, and I think the common sense nature that Walz brings, I think, is your best point. Like, if you think about the dynamics, if we compare and contrast these two tickets, the Republican and the Democratic ticket now, you think about the party of Trump with J.D. Vance, and I think by anybody's measure, it's fair to say that the party of Trump is a little bit out there with some of the things they say. It's a little bit more edgy. It's a little bit more, I'm not going to say extreme, but it just is not like, hey, you're not playing nice guy on the Republican side. You're name calling, you're making it extremely personal. Like, that's kind of the vibe of the Trump party right now in the campaign. But I feel like on the other side of it, Kamala Harris is now benefiting from this pick because the person who would be in the middle, not loving Kamala as a candidate, but also not really being committed to Trump's ticket, is going to sit here and say, okay, well, I didn't really love Kamala Harris as a candidate on her own, but
that's a lot of people.
Yeah, but obviously, like, as the mom of 3 or 4, the family woman who's sitting here looking at this saying, okay, well, yeah, I want someone who's going to fight for my reproductive rights. I want someone that's a little more sensible, a little more logical, and someone who I can relate with a little bit more. And I think that is why Kamala Harris went ahead and picked Walz as her running mate, because she's trying to get that sector of the country. She's not just assuming because she's a woman that all the women will vote for her.
Yes.
And I think that's extremely smart by her. That's very astute by her. However, I think that the thing for Trump is going to be that they need to find a way to combat the new car smell that continues to happen with the Harris campaign. Because you think about it, she's been riding that for weeks now. She's been riding it since it was decided Joe needed to drop out. She was instantly the new person that people could evaluate and gravitate to and talk about. And then she started campaigning. And now it's like, hey, now we're hearing what she has to say. The new person's talking. Let's listen to what she has to say. Now she's got her VP pick. Hey, the new person just picked her VP. Now we've got something else to talk about with the Harris campaign that maybe it's not positive or negative, but just is. And I think that's the struggle for Trump right now.
And he comes from a military family. His father served in Korea. He had a long career in the Guard himself. Like, there's not a lot to dislike about Tim Walz. And I think it is one of these things where you've got to figure out Now, how do you beat this ticket with a guy from Nebraska who has grown in politics in Minnesota? And that's very difficult when we're talking about you're fighting for Michigan, you're fighting for Ohio, you're fighting for Pennsylvania, where Tim Walz can go into any of those cities and towns, and you can really see him winning. And if you're a Donald Trump and the party of Trump, and that you continue on this path of letting JD Vance say some really stupid stuff, and now the guy on the other side of the line, Tim Walz, is a much more comfortable candidate than JD Vance is. And I think Donnie's got to get on board with this debate. And I'll continue to go back to, he pulled out of this debate and wanted to build a debate and build that debate. Even if you believe him that he wants it to be like the CNN debate, which is completely not true.
Yeah.
He said, he went on this podcast, and again, I'm curious if anybody has an influence on Donald Trump. He went on this podcast with this, I'm not even going to say the cat's name because he's just a weird guy. He's known for sniffing the seat of the person who goes on his podcast. Like literally, the person gets up and walks away and he smells their chair. He goes on this podcast and again attacks Kamala Harris as a woman who chose to be black again. And then he goes on this rant about how he loves Venezuela and he loves the leaders in Venezuela and how he knows that their crime is down. He's talking about how crime in Venezuela is way down. And why does he say the crime in Venezuela is down? Because they took all of their criminals that were in the jails and the prisons, the murderers, the rape, and he goes into this detailed, the murderers and the rapists, and there's 10,000, 20,000 people. And they sent them to the Mexico border and they came into our country. That's why crime is skyrocketing in the United States under Joe Biden. And he keeps saying crazy Kamala Harris. And I'm just asking myself, who are you talking to, dude? Because if you're going to win Pennsylvania again, do you understand it's not Philadelphia? You're not winning Philadelphia. You've got to win the outlying northern counties where the moms and the families and the kids live. And you're going on a podcast of a seat-sniffing weirdo that's, I think, 23 years old. And you're talking about things that just are not true. And I don't understand what is the point of that. And then the very next day, Kamala Harris makes the right choice with Tim Walz, and they're about to launch into a barnstorming tour. And they're going to talk to those moms. And they're going to talk to those northern counties in Pennsylvania and Georgia and the Carolinas. And they're leading in Nevada, Arizona now. And you're talking about, like, do you guys understand? And I know that it pisses people off, but do you guys understand that name calling Kamala Harris crazy Kamala, and you got to stop that. That this lie about immigrant crime, it's not even that it's a lie necessarily, that it's just totally not true, because there's no evidence, there never has been, that crime amongst illegal immigrants is skyrocketing in our country. Patently false. It's just not true. But do you understand what that's doing? And when you say that they're breaking into the country and taking black jobs, do you understand what that's doing? That's eroding your base in the black community. That is, now we're seeing in the polling, that is eroding your base in the Latino community, because what you're saying is these are all tropes pointed at the Latin community that are all murderers and rapists and criminals. When the reality is, who are the people breaking into our country? They're not the criminals and the rapists. They're the people that are oppressed by a dictator in Venezuela, to use Donald Trump's example. So all we're doing is talking about stuff in the party of Trump. It's not true. There's no evidence. He said that Venezuela put all these people on buses and drove them up to the Mexico border, and they all broke into the country, tens of thousands of them. There's no evidence that ever happened. Crime is not up on the whole in America. It's down. And again, there's no immigrant crime wave. And she's not crazy Kamala. He's back to calling her Kamala now. My man, I'm begging you, get on issue. This election, we're looking at this election, and we won't know about what Tim Walz, what the bump in the polls is, probably for 2 days. I would imagine Thursday, Friday, we'll start getting some real numbers, because the people who do these polls, the Fox News Commission polls, the NBC, the ABC, the CNN polling takes multiple days.
Yeah.
And so we won't know. But one thing we already know, when Donald Trump goes off script and makes these hot take videos that are now everywhere, his poll numbers are going the wrong direction. Because you can't tell me Americans are like, man, Kamala Harris, that's my candidate.
No.
I don't believe that she is.
No, what they're, dude, it's the exact opposite. What they're saying is, man, Donnie went on some wild ass podcast and is like name calling, and like it just doesn't look great. I mean, I don't like Harris at all, but Trump's not really giving me anywhere to go. And so again, I personally believe that Harris is not some like groundbreaking candidate. I think she's viewed as a fill-in. I think she's viewed as someone who is just trying to put out a fire. And basically that was the best the Democrats could do.
She's wildly flawed.
Yeah.
You have all of this stuff, like the border issue is talk about fentanyl, which I think is the right thing to talk about. Drug use, fentanyl, talk about narcotics coming over the border. That we know is happening. It's not the numbers that Donnie says, but we know that drugs are coming over the southern border. We know that. We know that terrorists are attempting to come over the Canadian border. Talk about that. Hey, I'm tough on crime. I'm Kamala Harris. Okay. Tell me about crime in San Francisco, because I think trying to tie her to the fall of San Francisco is just very short-sighted, because she had very little to do with that. But you can at least talk on that. He also said on this show that she couldn't pass her bar exam. And this kid that he's on this show with is like, yeah, I know it's terrible. She never passed the bar. She passed the bar exam. She's been a district attorney. She's been an attorney general. And now she's the vice president of the United States. The idea, and what Donald Trump is talking about, she failed the bar exam in California the first time. We've given you the numbers. We've told you that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
What's uncommon is passing it the second time. That's very uncommon, which she did. She's not stupid. She's not low IQ. She's not crazy. She's a wildly intelligent woman. This whole thing with JD Vance and saying that she can't do anything, she can't speak freely unless she has a teleprompter in front of her. She's proven that not to be true. Like, you're trying to call her stupid.
I just feel like everything that they're saying only speaks to the folks who were always going to vote for Trump.
Correct.
It doesn't speak to the masses who you need to win over to win the election. And I think that's the biggest mistake that they're making. Again, we had this big, long ass, passionate discussion yesterday in the members only group. And there was a bunch of comments on it about how we're pro Harris and you guys are Democrats. And it's like, no, dude, actually, I'm looking at this election and I've told you a million freaking times that I actually don't even think Harris is this amazing candidate. The problem is that she's on message and she's executing and she's reaching people who maybe didn't love her or maybe weren't going to vote for her, but now are feeling like, yeah, Vance actually didn't really pan for Donnie. And I don't really love what's coming out of the Trump campaign right now. And I like a guy like Tim Walz. Tim Walz is from Nebraska. I'm from Kansas. Tim Walz is from Nebraska.
He's a football coach.
He's a football coach.
He talks about protecting the Second Amendment.
Like,
He talks about crime. He talks about abortion and women's rights.
He seems like a good guy.
He looks like your grandpa.
Yeah.
And yet he's energetic and he's young and he speaks well. And to his credit, he's on message. So I don't know. I think this is a very critical day for Donald Trump. If I were Donald Trump today, I would not be saying two words. I would not be making statements. I really hope he stops going on these podcasts like this. God, what is RFK Jr. doing?
Yeah. Not being in the race.
He made a video with Roseanne Barr. He makes this video with Roseanne Barr. And he made her look like the normal one. And if you know Roseanne Barr, she's not normal. She is, I worry about her mental stability. He goes on this podcast with Roseanne Barr. I don't even know if it was a podcast. He released a video. So the New Yorker has released a really damaging piece on RFK. And as we've talked about on the show, he is not the guy. He makes this story about how he was driving and he saw somebody hit a juvenile bear with their car. And he didn't want to leave the bear laying in the road. He was going to take it home and process it and eat the bear meat. It took a little too long. So he threw the bear in his car and then realized, well, I need to get rid of this bear out of my car. Why don't we dump it in the middle of Central Park and stage like a biker hit the bear? And he's saying this as it was a joke between he and his friends. So he dumps the bear. He quite literally dumps the bear in the park with a bicycle, and it becomes a massive story. Like it was a huge story in New York. And this is years ago now. To the point where it was one of the great mysteries. And now, because the New Yorker was going to write a hit piece on him, and it's not even a hit piece, they're going to tell the truth. You decide to come out and admit that you left this bear in Central Park and wasted taxpayer allocated money and resources in cleaning that bear up and trying to figure out how it got there. Because again, I know we don't think ahead. Bears don't actually have a habitat in Central Park. Bears don't live in Central Park. So how would the bear get there and how would the bike have hit it? And as soon as they did the necropsy, as soon as they did the postmortem on the bear, they realized somebody dumped it there because it had been hit by a car. And it was this great mystery. And now he's coming out and saying he did it.
Why?
Are you trying to help yourself? Because you're not helping. Like, this from the guy, isn't he the guy who said he has worms in his brain? Like, what are we doing? These are our politicians now.
So that's what I'm saying, man. It's not that I want Harris to be the top line Democratic candidate on the ticket, or, I want this or that. I'm just dealing in what we have, and frankly, I'm a little burned out on the lack of professionalism on the Republican side, not just with Trump, but just the whole thing.
And I have trouble with this Republican side Donald Trump thing. And I know I keep saying this, and a bunch of you hit me in the comment section. I grew up as a Reagan Republican. I was born in 1973. I, as a kid, idolized Ronald Reagan. That's the Republican, the Bushes, the Reagans, that's the Republican Party. Donald Trump is not the Republican Party. Lindsey Graham is not the Republican Party. Ted Cruz is not the Republican Party. Mitch McConnell's not the Republican Party. It's the party of Trump. I don't know if the Republican Party ever exists again. I'm not certain that it does. But what I know is Donald Trump is not the Republican Party. It is the party of Trump. And you need to understand that. And we can sit here and we can say that J.D. Vance is the future. I don't think J.D. Vance is anybody's future. Trump party, Republican Party, J.D. Vance, who now is being hounded about his eyeliner. J.D. Vance is not the future. I'm not. Couple of comments. Let's see where we go. Jake had the best comment of the day. Lack of professionalism on the GOP party.
Typically, I didn't think it matters in politics, but we've never really seen it to this level.
But what we're seeing now, I think, is my wife is sending me pictures of oats. She's made fresh apricot oats. What we're seeing now is, I think there's 7 states that have Republicans against Trump. And you're starting to see that the guard there's a split there. And I think we've always known it was there.
Yeah.
But now the split between the party of Trump and the Republicans is growing. And I think they're worried about losing the House. They're worried about losing the Senate, and they're worried about losing the White House.
Yeah. Well, what happens if you lose all 3? Because what's the spin going to be at that point?
It's very rare that happens.
But my question is, if that were to happen, is that exactly what the GOP needs? Is that exactly what the Republican side needs to reset? Because I do think it's going to take something seismic like that for the party to say, we need to hit the reset button and we need to get back to executing on issues instead of playing and meddling in the sandbox of, name calling and all this stuff that we've been doing. Okay, it's time to make a change. And not just with presidential candidates, in Congress, we need to make that change.
And what we really need is, and again, I hope that you hear this. What we really need is freedom. Because we don't have freedom. And I hope that you, whether you're a Trump voter or a Kamala voter or wherever you end up, even if you're on Bear Grylls, knock yourself out. We need freedom. Women need choice. Americans need protections. We need somebody, I agree, that's tough on crime, that is going to do what needs to be done at the border. Donald Trump is not that guy. Is Kamala Harris that person? I don't know. She hasn't been, but she tried, right? We need somebody that will protect our freedoms. I don't need somebody to come and take the guns out of my house, and nobody's ever said they're going to do that. I want to go to the movies without worrying about who's got an assault rifle.
Oh.
I want to go to a ball game. I want to go to a political event and not have to worry about losing my life. And that right now is not the party of Trump. The party of Trump does not represent freedoms in this country. And until our wives, our daughters, our sisters, and our mothers are free to live their lives as they choose, until every person, regardless of their skin tone or ethnicity, that is an American citizen, knows that they are free to vote and that we are not going to try and restrict their voting rights, until every person knows that they can go to the grocery store in Buffalo, New York without getting murdered.
Yeah.
We're not free. And I think that's what this election represents. That's what you're voting for. You're voting for freedom. And if you don't recognize that, my friends, I think you're living with your head in the sand. It's a massive moment in your life. Register to vote. Please, I'm begging you. Register to vote and vote. Please vote. Please register to vote. The Monty Show, as always, presented by our friends at The Advocates, theadvocates.com. The best injury attorneys in the business, where you never pay a penny unless and until the advocates win your case. Chat with an injury attorney live online right now, 24/7, 365. Did you get hurt at work today? Get in a car accident? Theadvocates.com. Until tomorrow, say goodbye, Jake.
Goodbye, Jake.